This is the Morning Drive Podcast from Double T 97.3, presented by Cantex Roofing and Construction.
I'm Mike Hebert, owner of Cantex Roofing and Construction. Every day is game day, and we'll get it right when it comes to your roofing, construction, windows, and mirrors. Call Cantex Roofing and Construction today. Together, we are one serving you.
Here on the Morning Drive. All right, some thoughts on the Yates Flooring Center chat line. Good morning. The safety of the blitz for Tech had committed and hit Sanders as he threw the ball in the waist. All we can all look at that play and agree it was not roughing the passer. Colora went on and scored on that drive. They would have punted. I don't know if they would have punted or not. I don't know. Just kind of based on where that ball was at that point in time and their propensity for going for it on fourth down. Somebody said defensive holding on the fake punt deal. Somebody says this, proud of my Red Raiders. Colorado's 2 first-round draft picks on the team. Hunter will probably win the Heisman. Sanders will be the first quarterback pick. They also have former NFL players, coaches involved in this team. Hopefully Sanders will leave since this station once said he's a fraud, and we'll move on. I don't know if he'll move on.
I think he's done a great job coaching. I still think he's a fraud.
Yeah.
Like when he talks about morality and all that kind of stuff, I 1,000% and can give you numerous examples of him being a joke in that regard. But he is definitely impressed me with the job that he's done coaching this year. There's no question about that.
Yeah.
But those two things can be completely different. Yeah.
We were outscored 34-7 after the third possession. Utah was more upset with officiating than Texas Tech is. The roughing and fake punt when it was a 7-point game were huge. Yep, I agree. Not mad at the team or coaching this week. Officiating had a major impact this week. Their players, Colorado's players, had a major impact too. Major impact. Yeah,
absolutely. Impact. They're a talented team and a well-coached team and all the above. They were good. Credit them for not, panicking down 13-0, whatever. If it would have been 21-0 if you did complete those drives, would they have acted differently? I don't know. We never can say. It probably would have felt a little bit more pressure because you knew that you just go down there and you score once like they did, and looked like it was kind of pretty easy for them on that drive. And it just felt like, right back in this thing. Here we go. Or if it's 21-7 at that point, you're like, man, we still have a big uphill climb.
What sucks is that, man, the atmosphere was awesome. I mean, the stadium was as loud as it's been all season long. It was packed. It was packed to the gills.
What sucks is you lost.
Well, sure.
That's another missed opportunity.
Well, sure. That's kind of heading. Like this. I was heading to that.
This season is just missed opportunity after missed opportunity.
Yeah. And what I was going to say is that you had it all. You had it all going. You had it all right there, and just couldn't get the payoff at the end with a win to propel you into the next game and kind of move your program forward and get you to everything that you're trying to do with what you've got. I mean, it was just all set up because even when I told my wife, even when people were leaving, at one point in the fourth quarter, there were still a lot of people left in the stadium, and a lot of people had left. It just went to show you how full it was. Somebody was talking about the former NFL players. I got to tell you, and I was, a bunch of rows away from him because, we're at about the 45-yard line. We're kind of halfway up from the stadium, on the east side. But just seeing how large a man Warren Sapp is up front, I mean, he is massive, just a massive human being. I don't know if he could still play or not, but just standing there next to those Colorado players and other coaches and support staff just dwarfed those people, Jamie. It's just like
he's an NFL player, defensive tackle. I mean, those guys aren't usually small.
I know. I just don't think. But my wife was like, "Who's that down there?" And I was like, "Oh my God, he is a large man." But I mean, just seeing him in person. I mean, I wasn't even up next to him. But
wasn't he a little bit short?
I don't know.
His height? This feels like he was a shorter guy.
I don't know, but he was. Well, how can you say this? How can you say this on the Yates Flooring Center chat line? Proud of our student section. What are you proud of? And I don't think it's just the students that were throwing things on the field. It's a terrible look. I hate that you had to stop the game and have your head coach go over and scream, "Please stop throwing things on the field." And Coach Joey McGuire saying after the game, "We're lucky that we didn't get a penalty called on us." I just think that's terrible. I think it's terrible to throw things on the field like that. The beer bottles, the vapes, the water bottles, wadding up the tortillas and trying to. It's one thing to throw them at the kickoffs and have fun with it. It's another thing to try to make a spectacle of it by wadding them up and throwing them, because that's also happening. And I see it because I've got them at my feet. So I am in complete disagreement with throwing things on the field when you're mad or you're angry at how an official has made a call or how your team has played. And the fact that you had to stop the game a couple of different times and have the PA announcer make an announcement and have your head coach make an announcement, that's embarrassing. It's embarrassing.
I don't disagree, and nobody's going to disagree with you that you shouldn't throw things on the field. Nobody's going to disagree. That also doesn't mean that people don't do it. Yeah, they do it, and it is embarrassing. I agree.
Yeah. So to sit there and say that you're proud of our student section is and I will tell you this. I think Coach McGuire could have just said, "Fans, please stop throwing things," because it's not just the students. So let's not just label it as a student problem. Probably I'm not even going to say a majority. I'm not even going to say that because who knows if those people are enrolled or not at your university. But it's townies too that do this as well.
I'm sure it's really difficult to do. Really difficult to do. But I don't know. I guess when we see it happening a little bit, I guess I'm a little bit surprised that we can't police that area. Just watch. If we see an arm going forward with a water bottle, with a beer can, whatever, that let's go.
I'm telling you, the people in the KT Bike people in my section after the kickoff, they do that, Jamie. Yeah. I mean,
I'm not talking about tortillas. I'm talking about beer bottles and beer cans.
Yeah, I'm telling you, I've seen them do that. I've seen them take people,
point them out, and get people out of there. Yeah,
I've seen that happen.
Yeah, but I'm sure that's difficult to do all at the same time.
Is.
Yeah,
sure it is.
And Texas didn't set the precedent.
They did not.
We've done it before.
Yes.
It's not the first time it's happened.
Yes. I mean, you've had to stop a basketball game for that too. So
teams ridiculous. Across the country for years and years and years have been angry and thrown stuff on the field. We're not the first. We won't be the last. Texas was definitely not the first early this season.
Yeah.
Your daily dose of sports and fun. This is the Morning Drive Podcast from Double T 97.3, presented by Cantex Roofing and Construction.
Time for this day in sports history. Today is 11/11/2024. With this day in sports history and history, here is Jeff McGuire.
Going to start 1944. New York Rangers beat the Detroit Red Wings 5-2 to end the NHL's record 25-game winless streak to start the season. They were 0-21-4. 1959. Seal Stadium, a minor league baseball park and temporary home of the Major League Baseball San Francisco Giants in California, is demolished. 1982, Joe Altobelli succeeds retiring Earl Weaver as the Baltimore Orioles manager. 1997, Canadian-based players win the Cy Young Award for Best Pitcher in Major League Baseball. I bet you guys can guess who they are.
Which years?
This would be 97. Both of them.
Both of them are Canadian?
Huh? Both of the two pitchers pitched for teams in Canada.
One is Dave Steve, is that right?
No.
97 was Roger Clemens.
That's one.
Okay.
And
who's the other Canadian team? Or who was the other Canadian
Montreal.
team?
Pedro.
Correct.
Yeah.
Dave Steve was a bad answer.
He was good with the Blue Jays, though. He had the right team.
Yeah, but just about 12 years earlier.
Yeah.
2017, Kiki Kuti had Texas Tech's first game-opening kickoff return for a touchdown since 1973. And the Red Raiders went on to end a 4-game losing streak with a 38-24 win over Baylor. And in 2023, Gino Garcia hit a game-winning 30-yard field goal with 3 seconds left to play as Texas Tech upset number 19 Kansas 16-13 on the road. Tech defense held KU to less than half their season average of points on the road.
Gino just missed his first field goal of the year this past weekend.
He's been really good.
Mm-hmm.
Happy National Pocky Day. If you don't know what Pocky is, it is basically a breadstick type thing coated with chocolate or other icings served in a box. It's a Japan delicacy.
Yeah.
That sounds good. I was going to go with it's hockey played on a pond.
That would also be a Pocky. Yeah.
Yeah. That was just a made-up word by me, though. I don't think that's real. You ever play hockey on a pond?
No. I'm assuming you have.
I have, yeah. Like
actual
real
pond.
Yeah, we would. Yeah, we had a pond in our neighborhood, and that time of the year we could go play hockey on it.
You clearly weren't worried about it breaking, right? Because it was plenty cold.
It was plenty cold,
Yeah.
Unfortunately.
And cold for long enough that even if
there's nothing,
thought about it, you were
there's
fine.
Nothing harder to do than try to get your iced over skates off after playing outside.
Oh, I bet so.
Because the snow and ice just kind of freeze your laces. You got to take your gloves off to try to get those laces off, and it was impossible in the cold. So impossible. What a miserable place to live. I'm so glad I live in the South now.
Happy birthday to Leonardo DiCaprio is 50, Demi Moore 62, Stanley Tucci 64, Victor Cruz 38, and Mark Sanchez is 38. And when a family member loses a loved one in military service, the military does everything they can do to get the body back so that the family can have a proper funeral. The bodies are identified through appearance, dog tags, DNA, dental records. You get the idea. But, gentlemen, war is hell. And not every body is found or identified. What do those families do? What do we do with the fallen soldiers that we can't identify? Well, since 1921, one soldier from every conflict the U.S. has participated in since World War I has been guarded by an elite guard at the Tomb of the Unknown Soldier. The 21-step patrol has been walked every day, 24/7, rain, snow, or shine. That tomb was dedicated on this day in 1921. And that is this day in sports history.
All right. 6:50 this morning here on the morning drive. Today is Veterans Day. And on this Veterans Day at 6:50 this morning, the secret word brought to you by Double T 97.3 in the Home Zone. Your chance to win some money from us Wednesday, Thursday, or Friday is the word is complete. Complete. Like complete the pass. Like we did not complete enough passes on Saturday to win the ball game. The Dallas Cowboys really didn't complete anything yesterday except for the game. They did play all 4 quarters. They completed the game. Complete. 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 This show will be complete when Jamie gives us a question of the day at 7:25.
It ends then?
No, it doesn't end. I said it will be complete. I mean, it's complete. I mean, it wouldn't be complete without you doing at least that. But it will not be completed until 9 a.m. this morning.
Okay.
All right. Let's see. Somebody says Chuck Warren Sapp is 6'2". Okay, well, he just looked massive. I mean,
I looked up 6'2". I remember him being just not as tall as other guys.
He's a wide man.
Yeah, I think that makes a good defensive tackle, though. Maybe then just kind of like a stump in there, really difficult, and thick and strong, and
right.
Probably if they're taller, that makes them not as, I don't know, have the right leverage or something. Mm-hmm. Probably being a little bit shorter helps.
Yeah. There's just so much here on the Yates Flooring Center chat line this morning. Let's see. Jalen Conyers is a stud. It's bad coaching. We haven't utilized him this year. They've utilized him some, maybe just not enough. I don't know what all the scenarios have been, but I mean, He caught 3 balls on Saturday for 50 yards. Had a couple of touchdowns, so he was used on Saturday. Maybe you haven't used him enough this year.
Made another great block on a touchdown run from Taj. Yeah, unfortunately, I feel like we're in the same boat that we've been in previous years, is that you can't use those guys as much as you'd like to in the passing game because you're having to use them in the run game.
Viva 73.
Or you're having to use them to block in passing situations.
Yeah. Viva 73 says, it appears to me that the Big 12 has decided who it wants to play in the conference championship game. From what the AD from Utah said and then watching it on TV here in Lubbock, the way it appears to me, I thought the home team was supposed to get the home calls. When can we have an honest conversation about Baron Morton? He's regressing with more experience. This was his worst game yet.
I didn't think he was good. There's no question. Felt like he missed open receivers. Felt like he held the ball too long, and that was a reason for some of those sacks. Just wasn't quick with his decision making. At times, looked a little bit confused. His numbers won't bear out that he was terrible or anything like that. But I didn't think it was a great performance by Morton at all.
24 of 40, threw an interception, 275 yards, had the fumbles as well, a couple touchdowns, was sacked 7 times in the ball game.
Yeah, it's like you have to understand, Zach Kitley is calling plays knowing that his offensive line is struggling, right? And the way Barron at times holds the ball in the pocket and doesn't get rid of it makes you think, hey, Barron, do you understand that your offensive line is struggling? Okay, you need to understand you only have so much time here. You got to get rid of the football. You either got to throw it to an open receiver, you got to throw it away, or you got to tuck and run. Okay, on one of those early drives where you've got a 1st and 10, and he takes a sack when he's holding that killed the drive and ended up forcing you to kick a field goal or whatever. I mean, that's a drive change. Throw it away, and you're still okay. But take a 7 or 8 yard loss on 1st down, and it completely changes things. So his internal clock, his pocket presence, I feel like are 2 things that definitely need to improve.
It's got to be faster.
Yeah.
Your daily dose of sports and fun. This is the Morning Drive Podcast from Double T 97.3, presented by Cantex Roofing and Construction.
With Jamie Lent and Jeff McGuire, I'm Chuck Heinz. Jamie, you alluded to this earlier this morning, and I mean, it's not just been the Colorado game; it's been other games too. Specifically, maybe more in the losses than the wins. Here's Joey McGuire on what is happening in the second and third quarters that leads to offensive lulls in the game.
A lot of it, again, I think last week in the second quarter and this week in the second quarter, we could not run the football, and that was a big part. And then in the second quarter, they took advantage of some screen games. They outnumbered us on the screen. There was two huge screen games where it was 2nd and 19 and 2nd and 16, and they converted on both. One of them, I think, was a touchdown. But going back, I mean, I think in both instances, us not being able to run the football effectively is really slowing this offense down.
Well, and teams know that you're trying to run,
They know you're trying to run in the first quarter too.
Yeah.
They should.
It seemed like you passed the ball more in the first than in the second. In the first you start off with a pass right away to Josh Kelly for 35 yards, then Taj rushes for a couple, then there's an incomplete pass to Kelly, then there's a complete pass to Jalen Conyers for 17 yards for the touchdown. So, I mean, it was like boom, boom, boom. You went right down the field. You had a great kickoff return that took the ball out to the 46-yard line. So you started off with a short field and then took advantage of it.
Yeah, had a couple of good returns.
Yeah. Taj does break the rushing record. It was a really slow go in the first half. I think he had 40-something yards in the first half of play, but was able to get over the number. The number was 121. His net was 137. Did score a touchdown. His longest run was for 25 yards, but That leads you back to the offensive line, and here's Coach McGuire's thoughts on the offensive line's performance.
Well, it starts, there's back-to-back plays that 98 or 88 ends up in our backfield unblocked on run plays, lack of communication, mis-IDing the front. That's a mixture of the guys on the field and us as coaches. I think once you get to that point, whenever you're not able to run the football, and then you get to a point to where you're behind and they know you've got to throw the football and push the ball downfield, that's really kind of a couple times they were playing like a Tampa 2 and a 2-man. That's why we were running the ball so kind of like the week before, to where they were playing coverage and we got some big plays. But the not being able to run the football and then them knowing we were going to have to throw the football really got bearing hit tonight.
Man, I feel like that we've heard that lack of communication more than once this year.
Yeah, I think we have.
And then the other thing is, the mis-IDing, whether it's the offensive line or whoever that's supposed to come down to. And again, I'm no offensive expert. It just seems like those are a couple of things that have been, kind of continuous through the season. So it just goes back to you're going to have to invest in your offensive line. And I know that they've recruited some guys, and they have some guys coming up that that are not playing, that are freshmen or sophomores or whatever. But man, at some point in time, you're going to have to go in and just buy you something up front, buy you some big boys up front. Because it's evident that you've not been able to.
I don't think that's as easy as maybe many think it is.
Probably not.
It's no different than in the past, before in the NIL era, where you struggle to get the big guys in the trenches because the biggest and baddest and best schools are looking for the same thing, and those guys are few and far between. They're not as easy to find as great wide receivers or good running backs, whatever, and so they're hard to find. A defensive line as well, and so other schools scoop those guys up, and whatever you're trying to pay them, there's other schools doing the same exact thing right now. So it's not as easy as we should just go buy offensive linemen. I agree and echo that sentiment, but it's not that easy.
Yeah. One last thing from Coach McGuire right now. He was asked, because I think people were really frustrated by just listening to the boos and the response right before halftime after you got the ball back and you got a good kickoff return. If you would have liked to have seen more aggressive play calling on that offensive drive right before halftime. The things that whenever that happens, like anytime that we're running the ball, whenever you're talking about time running down, it's what they're playing from the standpoint they're giving us. You saw late in the game, they're running like a Tampa 2 or they'd be in 2-man. So that's a really good box to run in. So we had big chunk plays. We didn't have big chunk plays on that one. So we're expecting actually, really whenever you hand that ball off, you're expecting 10 to 15 yards and having a good drive starter. And, we didn't. And you missed a 53-yard field goal right there at the end. That's the thing. It's like, man, if you could have just gotten a few more yards. And then, I don't know if that changes the game at all, but it sure makes you feel better going into the locker room.
Yeah, sure. Absolutely. Momentum. Yeah, I think in the high school and the college ranks, momentum is more important than in the professional ranks when those guys are, just have more experience handling the ups and downs and the ebbs and flows. But I think in the college ranks, I do think momentum is important. So, again, it wasn't a 17-point field goal or anything like that, right. But it could have helped.
Well, here's the thing. If you're a little bit further downfield, let's just say it's a 47-yard field goal or 45-yard field goal, or let's just say he makes the 53 because he's capable, then when Colorado gets the ball and scores, and then you score, and then you fail to convert and you're at your own 31 and it's 4th and 5, then you're not going to have the fake punt. You're not going to have a fake punt when you're only down by 1 point.
Sure.
And I think I go back and go, man, I just did not like that call when it was 24-20 and you're at your own 31 and it's 4th and 5. I just thought for sure I didn't even think about a fake punt there. And I realized that's the whole premise of the fake punt, but I'm just talking about from a strategy standpoint, Jamie, that to me, and we talked about this a little bit on the post game. You see this all the time in basketball where you're trying to extend the game. And I felt like that was a game-defining moment that it didn't need to be in the third quarter. That was just my little humble opinion on it.
Yeah.
And I realized real easy to say today, real easy to say on Monday morning. I realized that.
If you had won the game in TCU, would we have decided that was a game-defining moment when you faked the field goal and ran it in for a touchdown? In the whatever quarter that was, first or second
I'm sure
quarter?
we would have. Yes,
we would have.
Yes,
we would have.
You're not wrong. I'm just. But I felt like that was a good one.
Execution was definitely a lot better.
Yeah, that was a good one. That was a good one. Oh man, it just was. Somebody asked this question: how is it that if we are 10 games in, the offensive line is still not communicating? Yeah, I don't know how many new guys were in there and how many guys that were in there that were playing not the usual position, but that's a good question.
Well, there's a lot of people in the stadium. Probably a lot of them were on their phones, so cell service wasn't great. Probably so when the left tackle's texting the center asking him what the count is, or if he should pull or double. It's how everybody communicates, right, through their phone. So
sure, and I certainly have been accused of not listening.
Well, and again, you have to give them some credit. I mean, their defensive line's really good.
Yes, absolutely. And
there's a reason I think that you played one of your worst games of the season defensively, and I think offensively on the offensive line, and I think it's because their defensive line is really good.
And I think this number is right. 6 of your last 7 possessions in the second half were you either ended with a turnover or you ended on downs, and you're just not going to win football games doing that. You're just not. Especially when you have the 3 turnovers and the scoop and score, and they get 17 points off of either your turnovers or when you ended on downs.
The Morning Drive podcast from Double T 97.3 is presented by Cantex Roofing and Construction. Jamie's question of the day on Double T 97.3 is brought to you by Connecticut of West Texas.
All right, so I'm listening to the Double T 97.3 Coors Light postgame show on Saturday night after the Red Raider football game, and a question was asked by the 2 fine hosts of that program, and they were kind of chewing the fat over the question, and so I am going to bring that here to you today.
Okay.
One of us should have a head start since he was one of the hosts chewing.
Yeah, I just don't know there was a lot of questions brought up.
Okay, so assuming that you're able to win out in the regular season, it's a bit of an assumption, but it feels like you have a good chance to do that. And you go 8-4. It's not something that we've seen a lot of late, okay? But it doesn't feel like everybody is sitting around going, yes, we got to 8-4.
Right.
Okay? Why is that? Why is this 8-4 feel different than other 8-4s?
Well, because it feels to me like you've squandered an opportunity to be better than even 8-4. Like, you look at the TCU game, you look at the Baylor game. I don't even know if you can go back to the Washington State game and look at that because you didn't have Taj, and looking at what Washington State's doing now. Then you look at even this past weekend. I thought that was a very winnable game this past weekend. Despite all your problems in the second half, you still had an opportunity to get a stop and then go score. And you weren't able to do that. I mean, Colorado was undisciplined at times, got some big penalties called on themselves that took them out of some touchdown contention after you had turned the ball over or turned it over on downs. So while I agree with you, I mean, you look at 8-4. I mean, heck, you haven't had a 9-win season since 2009, and you went 8-4 that year, and then won your bowl game, and you were 5-3. You've never won more games than lost in the Big 12 since it started in 1996. But I think the reason is, Jamie, because you go back and you look at this 8-4, and it just feels like, man, you missed an opportunity. but you still have to look at it as, progress, but it could have been more.
Beginning of the year, picking 8-4. You look at the schedule, you go through it. Wow, this game's going to be tough. This game's going to be, that we should be able to take care of business in this game, and this team's not very good. You beat an Arizona team that we all had high expectations for at the beginning of the year on the road. You beat Iowa State in Ames in November, which none of us would have, just banging on the door saying we're going to pick at the beginning of the year. And assuming you do go 8-4 at the beginning of the year, you're picking a win at Oklahoma State right now, which has not just been a great place for Tech to lock in a win. You've won there, you've had some success there, but it's not been a place of dominance for you. And then you look at your losses. Washington State on the road, second game of the year. Sure, Taj wasn't there, but that's a non-conference game, and you expect to win those. You got a loss to Baylor, who is not good. And you've got a loss to TCU, your rival. That is why this 8-4 sucks. You got wins in places that you didn't expect, and you got losses in places you don't want.
My answer, I don't know if it makes any sense or not. Okay? I just feel like heading into the season, like Jeff mentioned, we looked at the schedule. We said, this schedule is really favorable for the Red Raiders.
Yeah.
This schedule. You've gone on the road and won at Arizona that you didn't expect, and Iowa State that you didn't expect to.
Mm-hmm.
And it just feels like this absolutely should be a team that's playing in the Big 12 title game. It absolutely was an opportunity for you to be in the Big 12 title game. And let that get away. It's different when, we let that one game get away, and so instead of being 8-4, we're 7-5. Whip-de-doo, right? We let that one get away. Instead of being 7-5, we're 6-6. You're going to a mediocre bowl game either way, right? We let the Big 12 title game get away.
Mm-hmm.
We let it get away with not showing up versus Baylor, with just quitting after blowing a 17-point lead at TCU. And then even this one is the least angering of the three, right? You give credit to Colorado. That's a good football team.
Yeah.
But it definitely was a winnable game. Again, up 13-0. And for whatever reason, we just go through these long stretches where our offense is just non-existent. It just feels like you let a Big 12 title game berth slip away. And oh, by the way, do you know what happens if you win the Big 12 title game?
Yeah, you get to go to the college football playoff.
Okay?
Yeah.
I bet that would help in recruiting.
Sure it would.
We let it get away.
It'd help in everything.
8-4 seems, if you get to 8-4, and I'm here to tell you today, I'm very nervous about that.
Be interesting to see how much want-to Oklahoma State's got.
I don't care about them. I'd be interested to see what want-to we have.
Yeah, that's fair too.
Okay? Because there was a lot of hype and all the build-up for this past game.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
Coach McGuire's got a good challenge for himself right now. Right? You just had this big mountain that you were at the top of, and everything was in front of you, and we've still got all this to play for, and this awesome crowd, and big noon kickoff, and all that, and you let it get away. Okay? Now you got a week off to talk about a team that hasn't won a single game. We'll just roll into Oklahoma or into Stillwater and get this win. Yeah, I'm extremely nervous. Extremely nervous about getting to 8-4. So I just feel like we let a Big 12 title game berth get away.
It just kind of went right through your hands. Yep.
This is the Morning Drive Podcast from Double T 97.3, presented by Cantex Roofing and Construction.
I think with Jamie Lent and Jeff McGuire. I'm Chuck Heinz. Happy Veterans Day, and thank you to all the veterans who have served us and helped us and protected us and kept us from evil.
God bless you.
Absolutely. We cannot say thank you enough to those men and women that have served our country, past or present. Thoughts, comments, Yates Flooring Center chat line, hit us up on the Double T 97.3 mobile app. Visual Edge IT hotline is open too at 806-771-0973. We come to you this morning from the First United Bank studio. All right, that seems appropriate on this Veterans Day, First United Bank. Okay. We have High School Fan Zone on the air for you tonight. Coaches from Coronado and Estacado. The Coronado Mustangs have concluded their football season by virtue of a win on Friday night over the Lubbock High Westerners. They finished it off with a win, 48-14, their 33rd consecutive victory over Lubbock High. 3-7, 2-4 in district play. Okay. The Estacado Matadors are still playing. They were district champions, and they'll be involved in playoff action later on this week. They'll take on Fort Stockton. Both those teams 6-4. Both those teams had a bye week this past week, and they'll play Friday night at 7 in Andrews. In addition to that, we'll have high school football coverage for you on Thursday night. Monterey will take on El Paso Bel Air, and we'll have that game for you at 5:30 with the kick at 6 o'clock on Thursday night on 93.7 the Eagle. Okay, so be looking for that as far as the Monterey Plainsmen are concerned. And I believe that game is in Lubbock at Lowry Field. Yeah.
It is.
Bel Air, Jamie, this is the ridiculousness of UIL and the playoffs and how you have too many teams in it. Bel Air is 0-10.
Yep.
And Monterey is 6-4. Monterey is so deserving because of what they've done down the stretch here. They've won 5 games in a row. Started off with a win back on October 4th at Coronado, and then I say that they've won 4 in a row. Excuse me. No, they have won 5 in a row. Yeah, I thought that. And finished up with Caprock last Thursday, winning 49-0, 6-4, 5-1 in the district, and they're co-district champs. Okay, so the other game that we'll have on Thursday night will be Lubbock Cooper. Pirates are 7-3. Canutillo.
I cannot.
Okay, me neither. That'll be at Canutillo on Thursday night. That'll be a 7 o'clock kick. Lubbock Cooper is 7-3. Google it so that you know how to pronounce it and also where it is. Okay. And Mike Meeks was talking about this on Thursday last week, the Lubbock Independent School District Athletics Coordinator. He said because of the lack of availability of some of these schools and playoff locations, and I love this, in I think 6A and 5A, the team with the better record and the higher seed will get to host. And I think that makes just so much sense.
I agree.
I would love to see that. I'd love to see that all throughout.
I agree.
And I would love to see that in every division, at every level, because it just makes it easier on parents and fans and people that want to see the games. And probably from a driving distance, sorry about you. If you're 0-10 Bel Air, okay, and you have to drive to Lubbock to play, win more games. That's a proper use of sorry about you, right?
You nailed it, man. Nailed it.
Finally.
Yeah,
Finally get one right.
It's not about, well, I mean, you really, when you say good for fans, well, it's good for one side, terrible for the other,
sure,
worse for the other, right?
Sure.
Because they have to drive all the way there. But, so I don't think your point there is valid. Okay, but the fact of the matter is, reward
teams that have done well.
That's exactly right. Exactly right. And if you don't want to have to travel in the first round, then win more games.
Win more games.
Win more games. That's the way it is.
And then on Friday night, we'll have Friendship and El Paso Montwood.
The problem with that is you're probably going to get those chapters of officials too. You got to be careful of that.
Sure, you're going to get those Amarillo officials.
They might need to bring in. I don't know if they bring in neutral for all playoffs games or not. Probably would be a good idea if they did.
Mm-hmm. So Friendship will host El Paso Montwood. Montwood finished 3-6. Friendship 9-1. We'll have that game for you Friday night on Double T 97.3. There's a 6:30 kick at Tiger Stadium on Friday night. Okay, and then Seminole and Levelland will play Thursday at Denver City. So the 4A schools are not affected by this. You know, they're in the neutral site situations. Shallowater and Brownfield 0-10. Hey, good job, Cubs! Woohoo! Way to play your butts off this year. They get to be in a playoff game against Shallowater. The Mustangs will probably run roughshod there over at Lubbock Cooper. 7 o'clock kick. Get there early. I just think it's ridiculous for a team to be 0-10 and get into the playoffs. I'm sorry.
Okay, but you can't just look at that and make your decision based on that, right? Is it good that more teams get in and more kids get to go play in the playoffs?
If you're 0-10, you don't deserve to be in the playoffs.
Are the majority of the teams that are fourth in their district 0-10?
I don't know. I mean,
no, they're not.
Probably not.
They're not.
Well,
not even close. The small minority.
Then you know what? Shallowater should get a bye.
No. So you get these kids get to play in the playoffs. The UIL gets to make more money. I mean, other schools get to make more money hosting the games.
I'm sorry.
I mean, just it's okay. The kids get to play. All right? Kids get to make the play. It's not everyone that's 0-10. It's very few and far between.
I know. We got 2 of them, though.
Okay, very few and far between. Okay? You can't just pick out 1 or 2 things and make your decision based on just
I'm just going to tell you.
There are plenty of those fourth place in the district that are probably 2-8 or 3-7.
Mm-hmm. I would tell you that if you don't have an above, I think there's too many teams in the playoffs. Okay, I think there's too many teams in the playoffs. That if you don't have, if you're not 500 or above in district play, you shouldn't probably be in the playoffs.
If your kid was playing high school football and they finished fourth in the district, I bet you'd have a completely different opinion.
I'm sure I probably would, but I just don't feel like that this should be one that you should have. If you're 0-10, you don't deserve to be in the playoffs. I'm sorry. You just don't.
I don't disagree with you, Chuck, but you can't just, we're taking 4 teams from every district unless you're 0-10. If you're 0-10, you don't get to play.
Yes, we're going to go to another one.
So that means that team, Shallowater, whoever you mentioned, you guys don't get to play that game.
Or you go play somebody else. I mean, there's another district where team got left out.
Just move teams around. There's brackets. Just ignore those brackets. Just find somebody else to play.
I don't hate high school kids. I don't like high school football teams that can't win a game and then get in the playoffs.
This has been the Morning Drive Podcast, presented by Cantex Roofing and Construction. Check out our library of Double T 97.3 podcasts at doublet97.3.com.